What does this magnificent trophy fish and this desirable woman have in common? They are both acting on deep biological instincts. The fish was triggered into acting without even thinking. Something about the bait triggered an instinct that made it act. The trigger was too strong to resist. While the mating process with women is more complicated than fishing, the stark reality is that women indeed do make their choices on who to be with mostly by deep genetic instincts, being triggered whether they realize it or not. It's human nature. We all do it all the time. We act and make decisions, quite often, not even being aware of what our deeper reasons might be. What you need to understand is that women act on instincts they're often not even aware of, all the time when it comes to dating and relationships. On the surface, a woman may have conscious beliefs about why she chose to be with a certain man. Quite often, those conscious choices aren't actually the ones that are triggering her decisions. If asked, she might say something like, "I want a funny guy who's nice," but her biology is telling her something different. Many of these instincts have been embedded into a woman's DNA from thousands of years of evolution. Ultimately, the instinct to mate is driven by the biological need to perpetuate the species. A woman from thousands of years ago needed a certain type of man to have the best chance for her offspring to grow up and successfully mate themselves. Obviously, today's world requires slightly different qualities. Back then, a woman needed a physically strong man that could protect her and her children. In today's world, while it might be nice to have a big strong guy, the truth is that her children would have a better chance to be prosperous with a thoughtful, clever guy, someone who could care for her and her kids. And while in regard to selecting a mate that can help a woman perpetuate the species, the criteria has changed in modern times, but evolutionary biology has not. Do you sometimes see a man with a woman who seems to be punching above his weight? In other words, a man who might seem average, yet he's with a woman who is a beautiful, intelligent, fun, just an amazing person. The normal instinct is to dismiss it as just some rich guy buying a girl. Sure, sometimes this is the case, but there are many times when it's not. Whether this kind of guy did it instinctually, or if he studied and developed his skill at using the secrets I'm about to tell you about, the fact is that he's harnessed a set of highly potent skills. When you learn and implement these secrets, you too will be able to find that fantastic woman to be in your life. You can become that person that other guys silently envy and rationalize that you must be paying her to be with you. I know that it's hard to fathom that there could be these clandestine methods that the vast majority of the population doesn't know about. It was hard for me to wrap my head around it before I really understood what was happening beneath the surface with men and women. That there are these powerful instinctual urges that dictate to women who they choose to be with. Instincts that are so deep and so strong, they aren't even aware that that's what's driving them. And most importantly, that it's actually remarkably simple once you understand what these triggers are for. You can wield them for your own benefit, so you can have your choice from an ever-flowing pool of gorgeous, high-quality women that will be pursuing you. It really doesn't matter what your circumstances are. It won't matter if you're short, fat, old, or broke. When you trigger these instincts in a woman, she'll want you so badly, she won't care about any of that. I'm sure you've seen or heard of these cases where a super hot woman supports some broke guy that doesn't even work, and people wonder why? It's because he's triggered her instincts. These instincts don't work on reason, but when you know how to trigger them, they'll work for you. I know because they worked for me. In fact, when you hear about my journey, how terrible my situation was, well, to be honest, what a loser I was, you'll be more than impressed on how things have turned around for me using these techniques. I'm going to tell you all about my story and what these triggers are, but first, I do want to give you a fair warning. These mating triggers aren't little helpful tips like, be confident, or some kind of good icebreakers that might help a little bit. These are powerful techniques, ones that beneath the surface, like tectonic plates deep inside the earth, can't be seen or heard until they cause earth-shattering results. If you're not ready or prepared, you can be caught off guard. because once you've gotten used to using these easy-to-learn methods, you'll just be employing them in your daily life without any thought. And the results can be like an earthquake, quite shattering. After I'd mastered these mating instinct triggers, I was dating quite regularly, and in fact, I actually had found a girl I liked enough to make her my girlfriend. One night, I was at a business convention, and afterwards a group of colleagues were having drinks in the lobby. After a while, the group dwindled down. It was now just me and this one woman, who was attractive, but I wasn't thinking about hooking up at all. I was just enjoying blowing off some steam after a high-pressure business day with some drinks. Nature was calling, so I said I'd be back in a minute, since my room was nearby and I needed the bathroom. She asked if she could use mine, since her room was a bit further away. I was caught off guard, so when, although she was pretty good-looking, she finally pulled her tongue out of my mouth, I said something like, "I don't know if this is the greatest idea." She responded by ripping my pants down and pushing me, so I fell over onto the bed and yanking off my shoes, my pants, and my underwear. I couldn't believe this. I wasn't even trying to seduce her. At this point, I realized that there was just no way to stop this from happening, unless I wanted to really fight her off by overpowering her, so I went with the flow and we spent the night naked in my room. In the morning, when I awoke, she was fully dressed, putting her makeup on in the mirror, and thanking me with a smile for a great night. While this was a unique experience in that I had almost really no choice but to let her bang me, I've had over the years dozens and dozens of other girls making moves on me when I wasn't even trying. And because many times I was in a relationship I didn't want to screw up, I had to turn some of them down. It's a bizarre experience to go from a desperate loser to a guy that's turning down hot girls. I remember another time I was having a business lunch with this gorgeous Russian model. On top of being super hot, she was also rich with a millionaire Russian daddy. When we left, she insisted on paying for lunch and walking me to my car. She had her hands all over me, and I'll never forget the bewildered expression she had as I slipped out of her arms and dove into my car. She must have been thinking that the world had turned upside down, where a crazy, sexy, rich Russian model was being outright rejected by a seemingly average, middle-aged guy. You will very likely have aggressive, sexy women going after you, sometimes when you may not be up for it. It sounds like, yeah, sure, what a problem. But it's not as simple as you think. It's a lot of temptation. So try not to get too serious with any one girl unless you're really ready to be with one great girl, because you're going to have to start dealing with a lot of options. And additionally, I feel like I do have a responsibility to try and prevent unscrupulous guys from taking unfair advantage and really hurting vulnerable women. I'm just asking that you be ready to deal with horny, aggressive, hot girls that aren't used to being told no, and that you don't just screw up your life because you just had to have one more piece of fine ass. Finally, that you use this power you're going to have over women responsibly and not destroy lives. If you can't agree to this, then I respectfully ask that you stop watching this video. But if you can, then let's move forward. Let's start with me introducing myself. My name is Larry Berman, and I was a 35-year-old bald and plain-looking guy who had little success with women for most of my life. Yet I learned these methods of seduction that allowed me to have so many gorgeous girlfriends over a period of just a few years. It's like I was sent to heaven. And with the secrets you're going to have access to, you'll be able to obtain all the beautiful women you've ever dreamed. Whether you want a revolving door of tantalizing goddesses leaping into your bed, or maybe just one special, breathtaking beauty to make your life more fulfilling, you can easily make this happen. I know this sounds too good to be true. I thought the same thing, but I was wrong. To make you understand how powerful the system you'll have access to is, listen to how much it's changed my life. The embarrassing truth of the matter is that when I was a young man, I was a complete loser with women. It's actually not easy for me to share these stories with you, but I'm doing so because I want you to understand that if a guy like me can learn how to be a master at meeting and seducing women, then any guy can learn. When I was in high school, I had a crush on a girl that we'll call Jane. The problem is that although I wanted Jane to be my girlfriend, Jane only saw me as a friend, and I might add that I was the kind of friend that had no physical contact with Jane. Not only that, I had to endure hearing her tell me all about the other guys she was hot for. As bad as this was, it only gets worse. I also used to pick up Jane and drive her to and from school every day. I wish I could say it gets better, but it only gets more humiliating. After graduating from high school, both Jane and I went to the same community college, and since Jane still didn't have a car, I was honored with the privilege of driving her to and from school every day, which, just like an eager puppy, I did. Of course, there was never any physical contact. Finally, when Jane no longer needed a ride, she broke up with me, which was totally humiliating because we'd never really been going out. Yes, here and there, some girl threw me some table scraps, and miraculously I managed to lose my virginity and occasionally get a date. But the truth is that as the years passed, the conquests weren't too good looking, and they were few and far between. Why do some seemingly average guys have amazing girlfriends? This is the question I was always asking myself when I'd see some guy that looked like a loser marching around with a sexy woman on his arm. At first, I figured it was just that they must be rich. The truth is that this is a way for an average guy to score on a total knockout girlfriend. But when I researched it a little more, I found out that there was something more to it. I began studying the mating habits of other wildlife, and I found that there were a lot of things in common between lonely male lions, elephants, and many other animals, and human males. The essence of the system is that you need to understand that females have powerful biological forces dictating to them that they need to find a mate who has traits that, when mixed with her traits, will produce offspring that are the most likely to succeed in perpetuating the species. Then I studied the techniques of guys I knew that were constantly seducing gorgeous women, and I learned something very important. The guys you see with the hot girls all have something in common. These guys have one or more traits that trigger a woman's instinct to mate with them because they stimulate her primitive genetic codes into believing that mating with this man will have a high likelihood of having offspring with a strong chance of procreating the species. To a certain degree, you could call this theory a close cousin of Darwin's theories. You know, that certain people with traits that don't result in the survival of the species will just weed themselves out. The fact of the matter is that although civilized humans have been around for what we might think is a long time, this number varies depending on who you ask, but for our purposes we'll say 7,000 years. So even if man has been around for only 100,000 years, the percent of those years that civilized humans roamed the planet is fairly minuscule. Modern women are still functioning on raw survival instincts. Now, I know that the statement I'm making is one that many women and probably some men might take issue with, but the numbers speak for themselves. In today's world, a woman doesn't need a man to protect her while she's pregnant and bring her and the babies food, but her genetic codes haven't caught up with today's modern society, and chances are it's going to be quite a while until they do. Obviously, I'm not suggesting the way to score on your hot blonde neighbor is to show up at her doorstep with a freshly killed carcass, but there are many simple actions and words that can result in the virtual biological response from the woman. That is, there are things you can do and say that will trigger that woman's deeply embedded instincts into looking at you as the guy that can help her do her part to perpetuate the species by hooking up with a guy that will be able to pass on winning genes and keep her alive long enough to have and raise these offspring so they can then go out and repeat the process. There is consistent behavior patterns that these guys who have gorgeous girlfriends do to seduce and maintain these beautiful, sexy girlfriends. Sure, if a guy is rich or very good looking, those things help. Do you know why? Because those are traits that indicate that the guy will help produce offspring who will also be successful. But the genius of this system is that if you say and do the right things, You can trigger the same biological reactions in women even if you aren't rich or extremely good looking. In fact, really what happens is that these guys who do have this good fortune just learn to use these same techniques without ever realizing what they're doing. When I discovered that there were identifiable behavior patterns that these guys used, my heart skipped a beat because I knew I was onto something. I knew for sure I was tired of using the same pathetic ways I knew to try and score. Maybe you know what I'm talking about? Things like, as my heart would be pounding, maybe work up enough nerve to ask out a coworker, or maybe down a few strong drinks and stumble up to a few hostile prospects in clubs to shoot me down. Sure, every now and again, to my surprise, I'd get a date, but that's when the real trouble started. I'd be in a panic. When do I make my move? How should I do it? Put my arm around her in the movie theater? Or maybe wait for a chance for a goodnight kiss at the end of the date? So I began to experiment. I tried different specific techniques and objectively record the result. And my friend, immediately there was a drastic improvement. When I think back now, I almost laugh because I had no idea what I'd stumbled onto. A breakthrough that put me on a whole new level. The more I experimented, the more I was able to isolate the techniques that were working. Wow, did they work! My first real breakthrough was with a sexy woman in her 20s, we'll call Donna. I influenced her into giving me a ride home from a party, a classic secrets to meeting and seducing women system technique, and I used some other seduction techniques as we pulled up to my apartment in her car. Up until this moment, I wasn't sure if my techniques were working or not because she wasn't really responding. So she pulled up and turned off the car. Before I could even do anything, she jumped on me and rammed her tongue down my throat. I was shocked, but in heaven, because Donna was one of the most hottest girls I'd ever touched. Normally, I might have been worried about what might happen if a neighbor came out, but not with her, because not only was she gorgeous, but Donna was a cop. A few moments later, this gorgeous creature was in my bed naked, and the rest was history. Now, you might be thinking that this was a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, and that I just won the getting laid lottery, but that was only the beginning. Since that time, many beautiful women have seduced me. Well, they thought they were seducing me, but the honest truth is that they never knew what hit them. All of these gorgeous women were just deer, frozen, staring into the headlights, unable to stop the awesome power of the techniques of the secrets to meeting and seducing women's system. My lifestyle changed so dramatically, everyone in my circle noticed. Male workers who before dismissed me as a loser were now giving me enthusiastic fist bumps when they saw me and asking me who was that girl that dropped me off after lunch. My Uncle Elliot spilled his wine when he saw the knockout I brought over for family dinner. My friends were all asking for tips. Finally, one of my buddies that was in the publishing world suggested I created a manual to share my secrets. Honestly, for a moment I had a selfish thought and contemplated keeping this awesome power all to myself. But then I realized there are certainly enough girls in the world for me and other guys. I met with my friend's publishing team, and they were obviously impressed with the remarkable transformation I'd achieved from a guy who couldn't get laid to save his life to one who always had a new hot babe with him. The thing is, while certainly making some extra money creating a course sounded attractive, I didn't want to just give guys a manual and then be like, vaya con Dios, which in English is, go with God. No, I wanted there to be a real support system. Bring in some other advisors who had relevant expertise, like a psychologist, or even just some real women in the dating world, and other guys with great game. So, rather than just create a manual, I formed an actual foundation, because I'm not just hoping to help you get laid, but entirely empower your life. I want you to find the satisfaction and pleasure that I found. So the foundation is called the Life Advancement Foundation, and an actual advisory board has been put together. With the tried and proven methods that I developed and proven, along with the collective knowledge of our various experts from the advisory panel, we put together a program for you called the Secrets to Meeting and Seducing Women System. You won't ever again need to worry about who you're going to bring to the company party or the family wedding. You will no longer have lonely weekend nights reduced to watching porn on the internet. But most importantly, you won't be needing to do anything that is hard or difficult to do. You'll just use simple and proven techniques that work because they trigger deep, innate instincts in a woman. In fact, when our team at the Foundation did our research, we made it mandatory that the techniques we chose had all of the following qualities. No diets, no grueling workouts in the gym, no plastic surgery, no psychotherapy, no other types of gimmicks, easy to learn, require no special skill, need no specific physical traits, work effectively almost always, not require willingness to take great risks, be able to be used immediately, not require a lot of money, and usable by any average guy. To be clear, I'm not talking about a few simple old tired and persuasion gimmicks that you've probably heard of. I'm referring to things like NLP or subliminal persuasion. I'm discussing potent triggering techniques that cause what you could call embedded commands. These commands happen in the subconscious, so when the woman feels an interest, it feels natural and good to her because her genetic codes are screaming their approval to her inside her brain. When the Foundation was founded, our advisory board agreed we needed to give men the tools to go from attracting a high-quality prospective mate through the courting process so that a good potential mate didn't get lost from some silly slip-up or miscommunication. Perhaps you know what I'm talking about. You meet someone and things seem to be going along fine, and suddenly your texts aren't being answered, and calls go to voicemail. What you should also be aware of is that triggering behaviors can also work against you. These same instincts that a woman has include ones that seek to protect her from unsuitable mates that in theory could lead to offspring with low chances of perpetuating the species. And, just as is in the case of the woman who welcomes a new guy because it just feels right, she can terminate a new relationship with a guy without even understanding why she's doing it. Girls do this all the time. It's understandable. They're mixed up. Between getting dogged by opportunistic guys, her own baggage from her own childhood, and her genetic instincts screaming in her brain, they trash relationships all the time for no good reason.
I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I've ghosted a guy or two just because I got a weird vibe. And one of them, I actually felt pretty bad that I did it to. And a month later, I see him at a party with a coworker, and they seemed happy. And I keep thinking to myself, why did I do that? He's a great guy.
Although it might be an old-fashioned word, let's use the term courting to refer to the process from meeting a woman to ending up in a long, happy, long-term relationship. Humans have a fairly universal courting ritual. Unfortunately, the stages of this process are filled with treacherous landmines. You have to do two things at once. You've got to be triggering instinctual reactions in the woman you're trying to develop a relationship with that draw her to you while not doing anything that can push her away. All the while, so much of this decision-making that the woman is doing is being done without her even being conscious of it. According to New Scientist magazine, current scientific estimates are that some 95% of brain activity is unconscious. And an article published by Yale University states, when psychologists try to understand the way our mind works, they frequently come to a conclusion that may seem startling. People often make decisions without having given them much thought, or more precisely, before they have thought about them consciously. When we decide how to vote, what to buy, where to go on vacation, and a myriad of other things, unconscious thoughts, we are not even aware of, typically, how big a role they play. In another study published by the prestigious Cambridge University, sex differences in mate preferences, evolutionary hypotheses tested in 37 different cultures, they found certain universal traits. For women, the key concern in choosing mates revolves around the male having good financial prospects, as well as having the qualities that lead to those prospects being fulfilled, such as a man's ambitions, being industrious, and social status. Women also universally desired men who were older than they were, with older age being linked to greater resources. Please understand, these preferences weren't the ones that women told interviewers they preferred. They were the choices they made that the researchers confirmed based on factual circumstances, not what the women said they wanted. Also note, you don't need to be rich or anything else. You just need to trigger the woman to subconsciously feel you have those desirable mating qualities. If you want to stop leaving your relationship fate to choices that someone is making without even realizing it, then you need to understand what triggers these choices and how you can influence them in your favor. After exhaustive research into academic research in the field, a thorough examination of a huge quantity of anecdotal case studies, interviews, and our own statistical research, I now had all the information and facts to assemble the program. I find it helpful to use the analogy I spoke of briefly in the beginning of this presentation. It is the comparison of the quest of a fisherman to catch a trophy fish to your journey to finding an ideal woman to be in a relationship with. I don't mean to marginalize such a vital and critical process in your life by comparing it to catching a fish, but I think you'll find the logic of the steps to be illuminating and useful. Let's start with the first step, which might seem to be somewhat elementary, but in my efforts consulting with guys to improve their dating or courting skills, you'd be surprised how many don't give this first factor enough consideration. A champion fisherman always goes to seek out his trophy fish at locations where there is an abundance of trophy fish. If you've ever chartered a fishing expedition while on a vacation, you'll know that one of the most important advantages a fishing guide offers is knowing where to take you to catch the kind of fish you're interested in catching. The last part of that sentence is the most important part. It's about fishing in a place that has the kind of fish you want to catch. Certainly, if you want to meet women, you could just go somewhere that has lots of women. You don't need special knowledge to figure out if you go to a packed nightclub, there will be a bunch of women there. But are these the type of women you're looking for? Well, in a location such as this, there is a wide variety of women. Women of different ages, economic situations, educational backgrounds, interests, and interests in what kind of guys they want to meet and for what kind of relationship. So sure, there is possibly in that big group of women a few who might meet your criteria. It would be just like taking out a boat into the middle of the ocean and tossing a random bait you bought at the bait store. Will you catch a trophy fish doing this? Well, maybe, but the odds are way against it. So sure, if you go to a nightclub and try approaching 30 to 50 women, you might encounter one that meets your criteria. The problem is the odds stink. It's also not fun to approach dozens of women, many of whom will treat you like garbage. Just like it's not fun to ride a boat out into the middle of the ocean, throw out a fishing line, and if you're lucky, you get a couple of nibbles from some scavenger fish. If you don't want to spend your time, energy, and money meeting scavenger fish that don't meet your criteria and likely aren't interested in you anyway, you must do your fishing in locations with an abundance of trophy fish. Wouldn't you rather shoot fish in a barrel rather than cast your line out into a giant sea? So one of the first things the foundation system will teach you is where to do your fishing, so that you throw out your line into a fishing hole packed with the right kind of prospects for you. The next thing an expert fisherman does is make sure to use the right bait. After all, you could go to a lake absolutely loaded with trophy-sized fish, but if you put a piece of something like, let's say, an orange peel, you won't get any fish sniffing around your hook. In the relationship world, your bait could be a lot of different things. It could be walking up and saying the right line to a stranger. It could be saying certain things to a coworker so she asks you out. Or it could be a first online contact. Once a master fisherman has put the right bait into the water, he must make sure that his trophy fish takes the bait so he can set the hook. Again, my metaphor could mean many different things in the relationship world, but let's go ahead and give an example. Let's say you've enticed a woman to speak with you at a social event. You've said and done the right things, and although she's not sure why, she suggests that you and her should meet for a drink at an interesting new venue in the area. She takes your phone and puts in her number. She has nibbled at the bait. But this process is a long way from a guaranteed successful outcome just yet. When a master fisherman sees a fish nibbling at the bait, he's got to twitch his fishing pole just the right amount. If he twitches the bait too hard, the fish will panic and dart off. If he doesn't twitch it at all and the bait floats motionless, something may also seem off to the trophy fish and it might just flee. But when he gives his fishing rod just the right twitch, the fish lunges forward, sucks the bait into its mouth, and starts brazenly swimming away. It is no exaggeration that these early moments when a trophy fish is nibbling at the bait, that there is an extremely high risk of the fish getting spooked and vanishing. The same holds very much true with women in the beginning of the courting process. According to a recent study conducted at Harvard University, which had 110 subjects, only 33% of the women were interested in going on a second date with men they'd met on an initial casual social encounter. In other words, if you're in the early stages of your efforts to meet a woman, there's a 67% chance of her cutting bait and not giving you any second chance. Would this be a bet you would want to risk taking with, let's say, $1,000? Obviously, the answer is no if you have any understanding of probabilities. And by the way, those Harvard researchers recorded all of those first dates, and they found a common thread among a huge majority of the encounters where the woman was interested in the second date. It's actually something that is very easy for a guy to do during that first date. It's technique number 32 in our program. At the foundation, it's our mandate to uncover these golden nuggets where we see statistical evidence that a technique works and give them to you to improve your odds, so you're no longer one of the suckers losing at the casino. When a master fisherman uses the perfect technique to alleviate the trophy fish's fears, the fish will move to the next stage, which is to take the bait into its mouth and start to slowly swim away. This stage is the most critical moment for the fisherman, and it will be the most critical stage for you when you have a prime relationship candidate at the same metaphorical stage. This would generally be on or about the time of a first date or its equivalent. The girl has decided she's interested enough to give you a real chance to advance the relationship. If you play your cards right, by the time this date is over, she will have decided that she is very much interested and has hopes that you could become her boyfriend, or maybe more. But make no mistake about it. Just like that master fisherman situation, you too must be highly attuned to all of the underlying calculations that are firing off in your prospect's unconscious mind. Quite often, she may not even be aware of what actions or words will trigger her instincts to move forward. However, rest assured, she is keenly aware that she is ready to put a halt to this process swiftly if she gets the wrong vibe.
When I go on a first date with a guy, I'm watching very carefully for a few things. If a guy does any of the things I consider my red line, I'm like ready for the date to end. All I'm doing is trying to end the date without a hassle. I'll be nice if I can, maybe give him a friendly hug, or if he tries to kiss me, allow him to kiss me on the cheek.
Has this happened to you before? The date seems like everything is going great, and then the woman rejects you and ghosts you.
I don't want any drama, so I don't let him know I'm never seeing him again after this. It's just easier to not respond to a text afterwards and let any calls go to voicemail. Usually the guy gives up after a couple times.
It's crazy, right? A woman can and will very easily cancel a guy for possibly one misstep. She'll give him no indication that anything is wrong. In fact, he might even be under the impression that everything is great. Then he is frustrated and surprised to discover that for some reason she has just ghosted him. And if he tries to push it and find out what happened, he starts feeling like a stalker for sending too many texts or leaving a long voice message. But the master fisherman lets the fish nibble at that bait until it's finally ready to swallow and run. And when it's just the right time, he sets the hook. In the world of trophy fishing, even though that hook is set, there's still a great deal of mastery required to get that fish into the boat. If the fish is fighting strong, he's got to let it peel off line so the line doesn't snap as it frantically tries to escape because it's frightened. Many times during the early courting process, a woman can become frightened and suddenly make a frantic effort to escape. Most men, and perhaps you too, can think back about a past girl they were involved with where things were going great early and then something went wrong and it ended. It's quite common that years later, a guy can be lamenting about how he blew it with a woman he was very interested in. He wonders if he could have done something different. At the same time, it seemed like he had no control over the situation. If that has happened to you, or if by some miracle it hasn't ever happened to you, then let's make a promise to ourselves that we're never going to lose out on a relationship because we didn't understand why the girl was bailing out. Again, the way to keep the promise to yourself is to understand the deeply buried instinctual triggers that are likely 90% or more of the reason that a great girl gets away, the instincts she doesn't even realize she's following. When enough relevant cases are evaluated, clear trends and inciting incidents can be revealed. For instance, there is a sociologist at Stanford University who has conducted research on relationships with a sample in excess of 3,000 cases to determine common causes of failure and at what stages. In this study, 60% of the couples followed who were together for less than 2 months ended up breaking up. This corroborates that the highest danger to the relationship is the early stage, while you are still trying to get her, quote, into the boat. When you apply the techniques from the system the Foundation has developed through a combination of scientific study, personal anecdotal experience of board members, and psychological practice, your amazing new girl will be in your life with you in control of the courting ritual. You'll no longer feel like you're on a wild roller coaster ride, hanging on for dear life. If you're ready to stop wandering through the wilderness with no compass, if you're ready to take control of your life, then I want to help you make it happen. I'm going to provide you with a system packed with proven techniques that takes you from finding and meeting a girl through to building a happy, steady relationship. This system is a culmination of my own experience of meeting and seducing hundreds of girls until I finally found the right one and married her. Thousands of hours of research combining scientific study, in-depth examination of methods from actual successful guys, and interviewing and counseling with women. If you learn these easy-to-use techniques that any average guy can learn, you will tap into a tremendous power. It's so potent that I will need for you to agree not to misuse it if you decide you want to try the Foundation's system. When you trigger the deeply embedded instincts women have, it will almost seem like you're some kind of hypnotist or magician that they follow directions from. Or what I should say is that when you trigger the right instincts, you see, you are always triggering instincts in women when you are engaging in the courting process. It's just a matter of which instincts you trigger. Are you triggering their instinct to latch onto you as a potential mate who can help her perpetuate the species and provide a great life? Or are you triggering their instinct to get rid of you as a poor mate option? As you can imagine, a substantial financial investment went into the research and development of the Foundation's core program. So the accounting team analyzed all the costs involved and what it would take to make this a financially viable operation. Their initial suggestion was that we price the program at $1,500. I know your first reaction might be that this is just too much money to spend on educating yourself to improve your chances in the singles world. On the other hand, when you consider that amount compared to what it would mean to find that perfect woman to perhaps spend the rest of your life with, it's not really that crazy. However, I know that this kind of money might be hard for some guys to be able to come up with. The Foundation is not just about helping out the elite in society. I have guys in my family who I've seen suffer as they try to navigate these highly turbulent and tricky waters of the singles world. I've seen them suffer. I want to help you and as many other good guys out there that deserve to find a great woman to be in their lives. I want to even the playing field. So, I've been crunching the numbers with the finance people and have found a way to make it more affordable for you to be able to possess all of the powerful secrets in the Foundations program. I'll give you all the details on that, but let me give you some other good news first. I am so sure that the techniques in the Foundation program are going to work so well for you that I'm going to bear all the risk. I'm going to give you a full 90-day test drive with the program. I want you to have sufficient time to study it all and give it a full try without any pressure. If at the end of that 90 days, the Foundations program hasn't dramatically improved your situation in the dating world, then I'll give you a full refund with no questions asked. I can make this guarantee because I've seen how powerful the program is. I want to give you no reason not to give it a try. Let me explain exactly what your program will contain. The core manual contains more than 80 different proven techniques that will give you a vast array of options to meet top dating candidates and a blueprint on getting to that first date and onwards. Additionally, we have a second volume that is packed with tips and techniques to make sure that once you're past that first meeting and first date phase, that you do all the right things so that if you want the relationship to move forward, it will flow along. Once you've had a great first date, the hook is set, but reeling in that trophy fish can still be precarious. Sometimes fish that are hooked deep suddenly find a way to get that hook out and escape. So we want to make sure that you are pinging all of those deeply embedded mating instincts when you find a great girl, so that she doesn't have any subconscious panic attacks and sabotage things. Finally, we've also included an amazing mini course which covers the inside secrets of online dating apps. This course is authored by someone who has proven he knows how to navigate that world with his impressive dating results. The gentleman that has created this course has remarkable qualifications to author such a program. First of all, he's a doctor of psychology whose dissertation involved research affecting change in intimacy formation. In other words, he's literally an expert in how intimate relationships are developed because he created a massive study and received his doctorate for this work. But his expertise is not limited to just academic knowledge. Unfortunately, after 15 years of marriage, he lost his wife due to tragic circumstances he prefers to keep private. So suddenly he was a single man in his late 40s who still wanted to have children, meaning he needed prospects that were a good bit younger than him. Also, he wasn't interested in just impregnating the first warm, attractive body who was agreeable to becoming the mother of his children. No, he wanted a quality life partner, someone who was smart, educated, as well as being personable and enjoyable to spend time with. It took a good bit of work and research, but over the next year, he developed a highly effective online program to secure dates with very desirable women. Women that were gorgeous, smart, and interested in marriage and children. Since that time, he's had several long-term relationships with stunning, accomplished women. One was a pharmaceutical executive, another an entrepreneur, and one that was actually a former television star. If you're on these apps and your calendar isn't filled with as many dates as you can handle with prime knockout ladies that have impressive lives of their own, then this ultimate guide to dating apps, quite honestly, would be worth the investment in and of itself. Now that you can see how the Foundations program is going to change your life by putting you in control of your dating life, let's go ahead and get back to the money part of it. When you consider the amount of research that went into creating this program and the credentials of the board that developed and approved it, a $1,500 price tag is actually quite reasonable. But, as I said, I know that for many guys, a lump sum like that could be a bit prohibitive. At the same time, we are a business and have salaries to pay and stockholders to answer to. However, I came up with an idea that I think could work for everyone. Because this is the launch of the program to the general public, it could make sense to offer an initial limited introductory price so we can develop a larger pool of satisfied customers and testimonials than we already have. In other words, we could offer you a steep discount below the recommended $1,500 price tag if you'd be willing to perhaps provide some feedback once you've tried out the program. Obviously, the finance team is totally against this plan, but I'm overruling it. So here's the deal. If you would like to be part of our introductory trial group, we'll reduce the $1,500 price tag. In fact, we're going to do even better than chop the price in half, so it won't even be $750. The truth is, I want to have a pool of no less than 5,000 men who've had their lives changed dramatically by this program, so I'm going to do something that is maybe a little bonkers. It's not even going to be $300. It's going to be less than one date at a nice restaurant would be. If you're ready to change your life right now, I'll let you get in as one of our initial foundation program participants for only $79. So let's review what you'll be getting. You will be receiving the foundation's core program, which will reveal over 80 proven and powerful techniques to meet and develop relationships with women. Additionally, you will be provided with a second mini program called First Date to a Relationship. This course gives you the insight of several authors with substantial success and experience in going from dating someone to being in a serious relationship, along with the insight of numerous research studies that have identified techniques that are statistically successful. Finally, you will also get, as a free bonus, the ultimate guide to online dating apps, which will give you insight to some very potent secrets to make your online prospecting a pleasant and easy way to fill your calendar up with as many dates with amazing women as you desire. When you consider that one dinner date will likely exceed the investment of this program, it is really a no-brainer, especially when we're so sure you're going to get the results we say that we're ready to back it up with a full money-back guarantee. But just to sweeten that pie, so that it is truly impossible to not go ahead and grab your spot in the pool of introductory candidates, I've also been authorized to throw in a certificate for $50 for a personal one-on-one dating consultation with one of our trained dating counselors if you wish. Just to be clear, we don't offer one of these services you can find if you Google online dating counseling. These services are available to anyone who's ready to pay without having any real idea of what they're getting. Our online dating coaching is only available to foundation members that are participants in one of our programs. Also, to be clear, there is no requirement to participate in any dating coaching. However, it is available for all foundation members that would like to have someone to give them feedback on prospective dates or any stage during the dating process who's been trained in the foundation techniques. So, if you take that $50 credit and put that against the $79 investment, you're now talking about $29. We're talking about probably the most fundamental factor in you having a happy life. There is no doubt that a man that has a happy, satisfying romantic relationship has such a vastly greater chance of having a successful, happy life that it's almost impossible to calculate the math. The truth is, most people would pay almost any amount to have a life that was made complete by having someone special in it to make a life with. Or, if that's not your goal, to at least have it filled with women who provide companionship and sexual gratification. In this case, we're talking about pocket change, really. It's $79, and as I said, if you consider the $50 credit voucher, it's actually $29. Plus, there is zero risk, because if this program doesn't do everything that I'm telling you it will, then you can send us an email and get a full no questions asked refund. Please don't be the kind of person that agrees that they should do something, but then doesn't act. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different result. If you don't act, your life won't change. The years will pass so quickly, and they are lost forever. You know this is true. Isn't time already flying by for you? Do you want another 10 empty years to go by? Hell, even one empty year? Why would you, when you can change your life today? Just click the order link today and reserve your copy of the Secrets to Meeting and Seducing Women System program and your 2 bonus programs and the $50 credit voucher. The programs are all instantly downloadable once you've placed your order. Within a couple of days, you could be having your calendar filled up with dates with gorgeous, great girls. Using the proven system that I've developed and then fine-tuned with the Life Advancement Advisory Board, we're going to take you from that first date to a relationship, or maybe just a bedroom, whatever you prefer. No more lonely nights. No more showing up without a +1 at social events. No more sympathy from the people around you. No, sir. Instead, you're going to have wide-eyed guys gushing at your success and your stories. You'll see the look of other girls when you show up with knockouts as they wonder how in the world they didn't realize what a catch you are. Don't wait and think, oh, I'll just do this later. Don't take the chance. Click the order button right now and start your new life right now. You're born alone, you die alone, but you sure as hell don't need to spend the time in between alone. Don't let another lousy day go by. I know how much it sucks. I lived it. The emotional frustration, the sexual frustration, and it all changed for me using some very simple secrets, and it will change your life too. Again, all I ask is that when your life changes, that you drop us a line and let me know about your success. There's nothing more to say. I sincerely hope you'll join me and the thousands of other men living the good life, the life of a Secrets to Meeting and Seducing Women system.